Hello, and welcome to the Power Tools for Coalitions webinar series. I'm Danae Hartfield, Coalitions Relations Coordinator at USBC, and I'm so glad to have you all join us for this session. The Power Tools series is organized as part of USBC's training, technical assistance, and capacity building support for the network of state, territorial, tribal, and community breastfeeding coalitions across the United States. Access to these webinars is free and open to all breastfeeding coalition leaders, members, breastfeeding advocates, and to anyone involved in forming or leading nonprofit organizations in the breastfeeding field. Webinar and registration details are always posted 1 to 2 weeks before the live session on our public webpage at www.usbreastfeeding.org/power-tool. Webinar announcement emails are also sent through USBC's Coalitions announcement list. If you're not subscribed to this announcement list, we invite you to visit the Coalitions Learning Connection located in the USBC website, where you can subscribe to this forum to receive key updates and announcements from USBC headquarters. A USBC login is required to join the Learning Connection, but it only takes a minute to create. As you know, we've streamlined access to this series, so you only need to register once to have access to all future sessions. Once you're registered, you'll receive reminders from the GoToWebinar system with your unique link to each session. Slides and handouts for today's session can be found on the public Power Tools webpage, and they've also been chatted to you as well as uploaded to the GoToWebinar system. You'll be able to find the recording to today's session on the webpage or in the Coalition's Learning Connection along with our other archived webinars. And here's how to navigate to the public webpage. Simply hover your mouse over the Coalitions tab and select either the Coalition's Learning Connection, which is the second option in the drop-down menu, or the Power Tools webpage, the fourth option from the bottom up. For today's session, all participants are in listen-only mode. We've set aside 10 to 15 minutes after the presentation to answer any questions you may have for the presenters, and we encourage you all to type your questions in the question box during the webinar. And here's how you'll do it. Go to the GoToWebinar control panel on the right of your screen. If you don't see it, it may be minimized. Just click on the orange tab and it will pop back out. If you scroll down below the audio section, you'll see a tab for questions. When you click on it, it'll open up a box for you to type in. If you have any webinar-related problems, please send an email to coalitions@usbreastfeeding.org, and one of our staff members will be happy to assist you. And that brings me to today's topic, fast and furious fundraising ideas for the holidays. Did you know that as much as 1/3 of giving occurs in December? Today, you will learn tips and tools for raising money for your coalition this holiday season, even without 501c3 status or donation software. In addition, you'll learn key legal considerations, how to accept donations without a donation page, how holiday shopping can earn money for your coalition, quick and easy strategies to inspire giving, ideas for engaging with community foundations, and how to follow up with supporters after the holiday season is ended. Today, we are especially excited to have 3 of USBC's very own present to you. Cheryl Lebedovich, our Workplace Program and Campaign Manager, has been working with the United States Breastfeeding Committee since 2009. As a young student and working mom, Cheryl became committed to influencing the policies and systems that impact today's families, bringing extensive social media, communications, and technology experience to the USBC team. She holds a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Illinois at Chicago and completed an undergraduate fellowship at the Newberry Library. Sarah Walt, our Program and Campaign Coordinator, graduated from Carleton College with a bachelor's in English literature. While in school, she actively pursued coursework and activities related to women's health, gender issues, and reproductive justice. Her senior thesis was a collection of poetry that explored issues of gender identity, generational storytelling, and personal narrative. She also completed internships at the Newberry Library, an open bookstore, where she wrote and published pieces for the organization's website. Lynette Enigbo, our PR and communications coordinator, attended an Indiana University for both her undergraduate degree, which was in Religious and African American Studies, and a graduate degree at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. While an undergraduate, she created the Parents Resource Guide under the leadership of Dean Yvette Asenso at the IU Office for Women's Affairs. She is passionate about helping women find the information and support they need to thrive, informed by her own experiences as an undergraduate mother, an advocate for maternal academic retainment and positive child development. She has experience managing social media, graphic design, marketing, and advocacy. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl.
Thanks so much, Danae, and thanks everyone for being here with us today. So we're going to start off this presentation by talking about why start now. It's really late in the year, and it might feel like if you haven't already started anything that it's too late. But really, we know that the holiday season is a crucial period for fundraising efforts. So like Danae said, according to Charity Navigator, as much as 1/3 of annual giving occurs in December, with 12% of the year's donations coming in during the last 3 days of the calendar year. It's not too late. There's plenty of time to still take advantage of the holiday giving season. And there's truly no better time to start asking for gifts to support your coalition's mission. The holidays put folks into the spirit of giving, so they're already thinking about the things that matter most to them. So this webinar, we're going to talk about and highlight 8 ways that you can raise money to support your coalition, starting right now. We're going to go over the key legal considerations, how to accept donations, all of the things that you need to know to step away today, ready to launch and implement a giving campaign. We also have some new resources that we're really happy to present to you that we hope are going to be useful for you in your fundraising efforts. So one of the biggest questions for nonprofit organizations who do not have IRS tax-exempt status is whether it is legal to ask for and accept donations. And the answer is absolutely yes. The most familiar tax exemption occurs under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. The IRS grants recognition of exemption under this section to entities that are organized and operated exclusively for charitable purposes. So in general, it's only to this sort of exempt organization that tax-deductible gifts can be made by individuals and that charitable foundations can make grants too. So while any nonprofit organization can solicit and accept donations, only donors to tax-exempt organizations will be able to deduct donations on their personal tax returns. It's important to know, though, that most individuals do not itemize the deductions on their tax returns. So whether or not a donation is tax deductible really only mostly impacts donors who give very large gifts. So if you are accepting donations before your coalition's IRS tax-exempt status has been granted, it's very important to make sure that your coalition entity is incorporated in your state as a nonprofit corporation. Nonprofit status is granted by the state you operate in, and it's an entirely separate process from filing for tax-exempt status, which occurs through the IRS. So that's why even without that tax-exempt status, you're still able to ask for and receive donations. You can learn a lot more about this and go into way greater detail by looking at the March 2014 webinar, A Nonprofit Startup. So I really encourage you, if you have questions, go back to those early webinars, because all of this is really laid out in great detail. It's also important to make sure that you're using a small business bank account to collect donations. This is really key. You have to be familiar with your state's nonprofit laws to make sure that there's adequate separation between the directors, as in your board, and the organization. And maintaining a business bank account and making business transactions under your organization's name are some of the key ways to protect your coalition status as a nonprofit entity. Again, if you want more detail on this, check out that nonprofit startup webinar from March 2014. So while your organization's tax-exempt status doesn't stop you from seeking donations, it does influence how you reach out to donors. If you do not have tax-exempt status, it's very important that you let your donors know upfront that their gift cannot be deducted on their personal tax returns. Be aware that some potential donors may not be comfortable giving money to an organization that isn't officially tax exempt, but your leaders, your members, your network of supporters that are already familiar with you are prime donor prospects. And with a new fundraising effort, this is really the best way to begin. If, on the other hand, your 501c3 status is already pending, so you've applied for it, you've just not received approval yet, you should also inform donors of that. So because once you receive your exempt status, the donations received while your application was pending may be treated as tax deductible, retroactive to the date of your organization's formation. So if you formed in 2015 and you received donations over the course of several months, and then you received your tax-exempt status later on, you could go back to those individuals who donated and let them know that you did receive tax-exempt approval and that they can, in fact, deduct those donations. Again, donors that make large gifts are really the most likely to itemize deductions on their tax return, so it's especially important to ensure that they have this updated information. And also remember that if your application is not approved, those contributions happening during that interim period would not be considered tax deductible. All right, so we're going to talk about a little bit about acknowledgements. So acknowledging a donor's gift is a really important part of fundraising, and it serves two basic purposes. First, it provides an opportunity to thank donors for their contribution. We all know that every dollar counts, so it's important to thank each and every donor. The more personal and sincere that this is, the better. It's really a one-of-a-kind opportunity to build your relationship with your donors. Let them know how valuable their gift is to families, to your organization, to their communities, and really express how grateful you are and how much you appreciate their generosity. It's also a wonderful way to share about your organization's work. So why it's so important, how else they can get involved, what you're doing. As coalitions, you've probably come to see that it can actually be really hard sometimes to help people understand what we do and why it matters. It's not as simple as a direct service type of organization. So this is a really great opportunity to share your organization's story, or even share stories from the families that you've impacted. You're going to hear more about that later from Lynette. She has lots of creative ways that you can express your thanks to your donors and to your supporters. So hang tight for more. But also importantly, acknowledgements provide documentation of a donor's gift. So they're going to need this if they plan to deduct the donation on their tax return. The IRS has established specific requirements for contributions of $250 or more. So in the event of a large gift, the IRS requires public charities to send a written, it must be written, acknowledgement that has the organization's name, the amount of the cash contribution, This applies no matter whether the donation comes in as cash, by check, by credit card, whatever the amount they selected. It should have a description of any in-kind donations of goods or services provided to your coalition. So if someone offers an in-kind donation, you don't have to include an estimate of the value of that in-kind donation, but you do need to describe it adequately. And finally, you must include either a statement that no good or services were provided by your coalition to the donor, or a description and good faith estimate of the value of goods and services that your coalition provided in return for the donor's contribution. So that sounds a little bit tricky, but I'm going to talk it out a little bit more. You've probably seen this before. A lot of organizations, they run promotional campaigns, and they'll offer a free gift for donors who give above a set amount. So something like donors are mailed a free magnet when they give $25 or more. In that case, the donation acknowledgement would have to include what the free gift was and how much it cost the organization. If it was just a donation and nothing was given to the donor in return, you would only need to include that statement saying that no goods or services were provided. So while you must make sure that all of those IRS requirements are included and that you let your donor know your tax-exempt status and what this means for them, it's actually pretty straightforward. So the sample language on this slide meets all of the requirements for a donation that did not include a free gift, as well as language describing each of the 3 possible tax-exempt scenarios. So you'll just simply need to copy the one below these squiggles that applies to your coalition and then fill in the blanks. Remember that this is also a chance to continue the dialogue with this supporter. So feel free to add a few sentences telling them about your work, inviting them to volunteer or follow you on social media. You really can tweak this however works best for your organization, as long as you don't lose the required information that's listed on here. And you're also going to receive this in a Word document format in the handout section for this webinar. So you'll be able to download that and copy and paste it and just simply fill in the blanks. If you offer a free gift, you would have to take out the sentence in the earlier letter noting that your organization didn't provide goods or services to the donor, and instead add this sentence. So this lays out, as the IRS requires, the fair market value of the item and what it was. So it's important to know that this acknowledgement should not include shipping or handling. So whatever it costs for an organization to get the magnet to the person doesn't count. It's just the cost of the actual magnet. Again, both of these versions are going to be included in those handouts. Okay, so most but not all state agencies, like the Secretary of State or the Attorney General's office, require organizations to register before they can solicit charitable contributions. And they'll actually impose fines on unregistered fundraisers. So check their websites for guidelines and registration information. I'm going to very briefly review some key considerations, but I encourage anyone with questions to check out the March 2014 Power Tools webinar called Navigating Nonprofit Startup, because all of this is covered in really deep detail. The other thing I wanted to say was that if you have already been fundraising but you've not registered with your state, don't panic. Just check the requirements and deadlines and register at the next opportunity. It's important to know also that any organization with an active fundraising program that crosses state lines will very likely need to understand and comply with the rules about fundraising in each state where those requests for donations are being made. Again, not every state have laws regulating solicitation of funds, but it's something like 33, so it's the majority of them. And you should also know that there are additional requirements when your fundraising activities involve a paid solicitor. Again, all of this is covered in that that nonprofit webinar, the Navigating Nonprofit Startup webinar. So feel free to check it out. And just make sure that you're familiar with your state's nonprofit laws to make sure you're filing all of the necessary financial reports so that you can maintain your status as a nonprofit entity. I know it sounds overwhelming, but don't stress. All the links included on this slide are going to help you find the information that's relative to your state, and then you can go back with past tools that we've done through this webinar series. So who is excluded? Not all states have solicitation registration requirements, but those that do commonly have a patchwork of exclusions. So some states offer an exemption from registration requirements under certain conditions, while others out and out exclude particular types of organizations from the law. For example, most states have exemptions for organizations who are raising small amounts, like typically under $5,000. You can visit this link, the appendix of the Unified Registration Statement, for details on your state's exemption, but also make sure you go back and confirm with your state as the laws are routinely updated. Again, this is a very brief explanation, so I encourage you to go and look at our previous webinars for more on this. So we made it through the hard part. Those are the key legal considerations for fundraising. And now we're going to dive into 8 fast and furious ideas for you to raise money for your coalition this holiday season. The first thing to know is if your organization doesn't have software or a donation page on your website already, there are lots of platforms that you can use for this purpose. So you can collect donations. They're very easy. They're very user-friendly. But some of them, it's important to know that some of them are only available for 501c3 organizations. So a few examples of these are Razoo. This one in particular, this year, they've actually decided to waive their platform fee in celebration of Giving Tuesday. Another one is just give.org. Again, it's one where you can collect donations through their website. They give you everything that you need, how to download a button to put on your website and all that fun stuff. For Just Give, you have to be a 501c3 and listed in GuideStar, so that's an important consideration. And then another thing that you can do is on GuideStar, they actually have an option so that if someone was looking up your organization and trying to decide whether they wanted to donate to you, you can actually opt to have a Donate Now button included on your organization's GuideStar report. So again, you just go to the website and they're going to walk you through how you can add that in. If you don't have 501c3 status, one of the easiest ways to collect donations is through PayPal. So you can just go to their website. They have all kinds of information and toolkits and helplines available for you. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and it's really important to know that the processing and the platform fees will vary. So you're going to want to spend some time researching your options so that you can identify which one works best for you and your organization. Okay, our second great idea, Giving Tuesday. So you've probably heard of Giving Tuesday. It really kicks off the charitable season with a global day of giving celebrated on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving, so it's coming up, and the widely recognized shopping events, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. This is in its 5th year, and it's really been embraced by organizations the world over. The other really great part about it is that the Giving Tuesday website provides all the tools and resources you could possibly hope for. So from social media tools, sample press releases, sample outreach emails, they have a whole toolkit around this concept of the unselfie or a selfless selfie, where you feature a caption about how or why you're giving to a particular issue or organizations. So this is a really quick and easy way to sort of jump on the fundraising holiday season. Really, this can be as easy as sending an email to your list of supporters, posting a series of social media posts. That's really all it can take to take advantage of the Giving Tuesday momentum. The hashtag is huge. It's well known. And many organizations really go beyond fundraising asks. So they'll call on supporters for Giving Tuesday to volunteer or to share their stories, to take action, or whatever it is that they need help with within their organization to reach their mission. So this is a great way to lift up all the ways that individuals can support your organizations. It doesn't only have to be focused on making a donation. Okay, and number 3, so a really quick and easy way to implement a giving campaign could be with a matching gift challenge. So these are gifts made to your organization under the provision that other donors come together to match it. You've probably seen campaigns like this before. USBC has done a lot of them where organizations are sharing things on Facebook and in emails that say things like, your donation will be matched dollar for dollar, doubling your impact. This is a really effective way to inspire donors to give. It creates urgency because usually it'll be something like a donor made a contribution, has made a matching gift challenge. They'll give up to they'll match donations up to $1,000 or made through a certain date. So it creates this sense of urgency. And it's also for people who can only give a small amount. Maybe they can only give $5 or $10 or $15. This is a way to really make sure to help them ensure that their gift goes a long way and goes further towards making a difference for your organization. And I know that we keep calling this easy, and it can feel really intimidating to think about finding a matching gift donor when you're new to fundraising, but there are actually some pretty quick ways to do this, just reaching out to your own personal network. So for example, a strategy that USBC has used is combining donation pledges from our board members. So you can also do this with your board or with key volunteers. So you find out how much they're able to donate that year and combine all of that into a matching gift challenge. This also has the additional benefit of showing that your coalition's leadership is really investing themselves. Like they really believe in your cause, that they're putting their money down on it. Another idea is if you have someone who donates every year, you can ask them to instead consider making a matching gift challenge because this will make their gift go a lot further. A matching gift challenge doesn't have to be huge. Really, an appropriate amount depends on your own fundraising goals, but even a few $100s can go a long way toward achieving your mission. So I encourage you to give it a try. And with that, I am going to pass over to Sarah, who's going to talk about some more ideas to raise money for your coalition.
Thanks, Cheryl. So my name is Sarah Walls. I am the Program and Campaign Coordinator for the USBC. And for this next tip, I'm going to talk about 2 shopping-based fundraising tools that are perfect to start promoting around the holidays. Both of them are online-based and free to use. The first tool is Amazon Smile, which you're probably familiar with. It seems to have recently become a more well-known and popular fundraising tool. After a user signs up with Amazon Smile and selects the organization they wish to support, Amazon automatically donates 0.5% of their purchase price. So after your coalition registers with Amazon Smile, it'll just be and a supporter chooses to support you, it'll just auto-populate into the Amazon site. Amazon also will send you sample language that you can use to promote Amazon Smile to your network, which I've included some language that we recently received for the holidays on this slide. There are some state-by-state restrictions to how you can promote Amazon Smile, so be sure to read those carefully when you sign up. Some cons to Amazon Smile are that it's a pretty small percentage, and you're required to have 501c3 status to register. However, the upside to this tool is that it doesn't require any additional steps for shoppers after they initially sign up and select your coalition. So it's really a kind of like an almost like set it and forget it method of fundraising. The second shopping tool I want to talk about is Good Shop and Good Search. Good Shop is a shopping portal for thousands of retailers where customers can support their favorite cause, in this case you, while they shop. Good Shop also has coupons for many major stores and entertainment and dining deals for most major cities. After a Good Shop user selects you as their cause, Good Shop donates a percentage of their purchase price to you. The exact percentage varies by retailer. Good Shop also sends weekly emails to your supporters on what they call Good Shop Sundays to reminding them to shop and support you. Some pros to Good Shop and reasons that I really like it are that you don't have to be a 501c3, you don't have to have 501c3 status, you just need to be a nonprofit organization. Also, the percentages are larger than Amazon Smile, even weirdly for Amazon itself. They donate like 1.5% of your purchase price as opposed to 0.5. However, the con is that this isn't a direct shopping tool as opposed to Amazon Smile where it just is built into your shopping experience. This is a portal, which makes it an extra step for your supporters. However, because of the huge benefit that can have, I'd suggest heavily promoting this to your more dedicated network of maybe your volunteers, your staff or board, the people who you know will take an extra step to support you. And I've included some sample language here that you could share with your supporters. My next topic is the most important part of any campaign, the ask. I've included some keys to a successful ask on this slide, just how to make your ask stick to your supporters and get them donating to you. The first thing that I would highly recommend is to share the story of the coalition, which is something you're probably already deeply intrinsically familiar with. We all already know the magnificent work that we do, the programs that we host, and the families that we help. This is the time to do a little bragging about it and let people know that this awesome work is happening in their community and that they can be a part of it and support it. You should include the what. What does the money go to? What's that gap that the donation will fill? For example, at the USBC, we almost always include why we need our supporters' help, which is for our advocacy work. And if you can, include a specific number, $25 to $5 to $100, whatever you think will really resonate and stick with your recipient. To talk about why they should donate to you, what makes you special. This is a time of year when a lot of emails come in asking for money. What is your unique strength and impact? This is a good place to appeal to people's emotions. People tend to really donate with their heart, not with their heads. And this time of year, people are often in the spirit of giving, so it's pretty easy to give them that little extra nudge. Finally, a really good technique is to talk about the work that the recipient, the you, will do by donating, not the we of the organization. This turns the donation around on them and helps them see where their dollars could go and the impacts that they could make in their community. Again, playing into that sort of like emotional feel-good moment. All of these ideas for the ask don't have to be limited to an email appeal. You can also scale them down to use on Facebook and Twitter. Just always be sure to include the link to your donation page in the post that you're directly sending people to donate. When you are sending an email appeal, here are some ways to make yours stand out. The first thing seems small, but it is so important, which is the subject line. This is the threshold where people decide whether or not to even open your email and give you a shot. Make sure it's short, it's to the point. We've played around with using direct questions, with using exclamation points. We sometimes even at USBC will throw in relevant emojis. So when we launched our airport bill, we put little airplanes in it, which breaks up that sort of wall of text that you'll see in your inbox and kind of draws your eye to it and makes you a little intrigued and want to open it. You want short and active paragraphs. Don't be afraid to have some white space. It's less intimidating to your reader. I also love a strategic bold and italic, as you can probably tell by my slides. It helps move the reader's eyes through your writing and keeps them going to the donation link. Speaking of, include the link to your donation page early and often. Don't just tack it on at the end. Link to it in the first couple paragraphs when you begin the appeal, giving as many possible inlets for people to make it to your donation page. And finally, friends don't let friends draft alone. During a campaign, Cheryl, Lynette, and I are constantly passing things back and forth to each other. Another person's eyes and edits are so important to helping your appeal shine. When you want to start drafting your appeal, be sure to check out our template holiday email that we've included in our toolkit with this webinar. It has a couple places for slotting in your accomplishments and activities, and then you'll be ready to send. I'd also suggest, this is a thing that I've started doing recently, just going through the emails that you already receive, and we all get dozens every single day, and see what subject lines like are catching your eye, or what structure of an email is standing out to you. The final thing I'm going to talk about before passing it on to Lynette is reaching out to local community and family foundations at the end of the year. Before I go into the slide and how you can go about doing this, I want to talk about why we're recommending this to you. At the close of the year, smaller foundations are likely to have funds that they need to spend down before December 31st, and there's a good chance they might be looking for new organizations to fund. Sometimes it is literally as simple as approaching them during this opportune time with an ask for a specific amount of money for a project that aligns with their vision, mission, and values. So I suggest sending a letter to 3 local foundations in the next month and just seeing what comes of it. So the first step in approaching a foundation is finding the right foundation. The USBC has a subscription to Foundation Directory Online, which is a super comprehensive resource that allows you to search by a ton of parameters, including location, topic, size, operating budget, like all sorts of things. All of our state breastfeeding coalitions are invited to use it. Just email our coalition's email on the screen for the login information. After you find some prospects in the foundation directory, then dig a little deeper. Are you mutual friends with anyone on their board? This will be a small foundation in your community. There's a good chance that you have a friend of a friend or a friend of a friend of a friend that knows someone who is a mover and shaker in this foundation. What other projects have they recently funded? Can you sort of see yourself aligning with that? Has there been any recent local news coverage of their work? Be sure to note any contact people or preferred methods of contact from the foundation's website as well. While you're doing this digging and sort of sleuthing around, you can keep hold of all of these details in a tracker. We've included a template tracker in our toolkit today to get you started on that. So after you've identified the 3 foundations that are a good fit for your coalition, take a look at the outreach letter template in our toolkit and modify it for your work and the foundation's interests. Send it off and be sure to follow up. So similar to the legal presentation that Cheryl gave at the beginning, this might seem like a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So I'd highly recommend reviewing our 2 Foundation Center Power Tools webinars. Grant Seeking Basics will guide you through the process of finding a foundation, which I talked about earlier. And Introduction to Proposal Writing will walk you through writing that letter to foundations. And with that, I am going to pass the baton to Lynette.
Lynette, you may be muted on your computer.
You are absolutely right. I was totally rolling. Okay, so let's start again. Hi, I'm Lynette. I'm going to be talking about memes or graphics, why they're so important, why they get their own section. Memes are important for a lot of reasons. I'm going to highlight some of the major ones. One is that they take up space and they get noticed. So especially when you're thinking about translating a lot of what Cheryl and Sarah have spoken about into social media, they actually take up space. So the physical picture draws the reader's attention when you're scrolling through a news feed. And this is especially important in like Twitter and Facebook. Because both of these platforms have an algorithm that actually increases the size of the post as more people click on it. And more people are going to click on your post if there's an image associated with it, mainly because they want to see the image. So it also increases your ability to customize the message, especially when characters are limited. Again, this is especially for Twitter, where you might want to customize the message on the top for a lot of reasons. One could be that you're using a scheduling platform like Sprout Social or Hootsuite. which those platforms don't allow you to have the same message twice in a 24-hour period. So you need to change the words that are in the text box. And sometimes you might not want to lose the core information, and that's what the meme has. So the meme is going to have your key messaging and your link. So no matter what happens, no matter how many times it's shared, the details don't get lost. And so that was sort of the third important point. The last thing is that memes are really versatile. So you can use them across your social media platforms, but you can also use them in emails. You can also print, if you have one that you like, you can print it out and put it on a magnet or put it on a postcard. So USBC, we've done that where I've used the graphic, the PDF or the JPEG of a meme on social media, but we've also had it as the images for the matching gift or used it later for something else. So they're just a really great way.
Lynette,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, would you mind showing your screen in presentation mode so it's just a bit larger for everyone?
Sure. Okay. So they're just a great way to get the most out of your graphic. And I'm going to have to take it out of presentation mode. I'll put it back when we get to the other slides because we've made graphics for you guys. I will increase the size. Let me know if that helps. How's that?
That's great, thanks.
Okay, so what we've done for you guys is one of the barriers to creating memes is not having access to those fancy Adobe platforms, they're expensive, but also the learning curve is really high because they're a really specialized product. So I'm going to show you how to use how to use PowerPoint as your meme creation platform. So what we've done is we've created 2 meme templates that you can actually just go into, and just the way it is right now, you can change the wording and save it. So I'm going to talk about the order of the wording and show you how to save it, and then we'll come back in and talk about how to customize it more if you want to do that. So the way that we normally set our graphics up is a call to action. So this is sort of how Sarah talked about having hierarchy and using bolding and italics. We do a similar thing. So the call to action might be a short sort of burst, and I found for this one, there's in number 19, there's a great sentence. So we're going to actually just cut and paste it from the PowerPoint. So this is kind of an example of the best way to create your memes, which is go through, create all your wording, and then find the things that you really want to stick out, and literally cut and paste it into your graphic. So I'm going to make this the call to action. And this is sort of your why should people, like your way to get people's attention. So you want this to sort of stand out and be bold so that people are drawn to reading where you make the case. So in this section, you would maybe cut and paste a few more sentences about why someone should donate to your cause, or sort of what Sarah was talking about in terms of using language to point out why your organization really shines. So that's what you would put here, and then your donation, the link to your donation page. I will say that it's important, if you can, to make sure that you also put the donation link in the body of the text when you are sharing on social media, because this link is not what we call a live link, which means in the image they're not going to be able to click on it and go directly to the page. And you want to make it as easy as possible for people to get to that page. Sort of the same idea with what Sarah was talking about with websites that cause you to click a bunch of places before you get to what you actually need. That actually discourages people from doing whatever it is you want them to do. So the fewer clicks, the better. And so we've created another graphic, which is more of like a thank you graphic, and you can go in and change the wording here, and then you can actually just save this. So I'm going to show you how to save PowerPoints as JPEGs, and right from here you'll be able to share this on social media or in your websites. or in your emails. So you go to save. Oh, I'm sorry, not save. Save as. I like to save things to my desktop, and it works for the presentation because you'll be able to see it sort of appear. So you can name it whatever you want, have it at the desktop, and it's really important to change the format from a PowerPoint to a JPEG. And here you have options. So you can actually save just the current website, or you can save every slide. I prefer to save every slide because it saves it in a folder, so you're not going to have a bunch of loose JPEGs on your desktop. Here it's also important to note that you can change the height and the width, and we'll talk about changing the height and the width in a second when we do sort of our more in-depth look at this. But for right now, the standard height and width is a really good place to start, and you shouldn't have problems with that. But if you do, I'll talk about troubleshooting. So now that you have it saved, you can see that every single slide is now saved as a JPEG. So if you had already changed the text in any one of these, you could just drag and drop it to your desktop or whatever folder you want to keep it in and share it on social media. So that is the most important part of using these templates. So now we're going to go back and talk about sort of ways to customize this even further. These images are from our photo project. So here's the link, usbreastfeeding.org/photo/project. So if you head over to that website, which is, I have it pulled up here, and you read through the terms of use and click agree, you have access to albums of gorgeous photos. So I would recommend going through on sort of a calm day and picking albums and going through and picking the photographs that you want to use. The photographs that you choose determine a lot about how your graphic will end up looking, and we'll talk about that later, or we'll talk about that in just a second. So I'm gonna, a nice thing about this is dragging and dropping. I'm a huge fan of dragging and dropping because it makes prep easier. You'll find that when you're creating graphics, you want to sort of treat it like you're cooking. You want to get all of your ingredients together in one place before you start. And that just makes it, it just makes it exponentially easier. So one of the reasons that the picture that you choose makes a huge difference is sort of, is it a horizontal or is it a vertical picture? And you can see that you don't want to have to edit the picture. So if you change the size of this, it causes distortion. So you want to be able to just drag and drop it, and whatever size it is, you want to be able to keep it that size. Some important things to also consider when you're creating graphics is this sort of what's on top of what. So here we have this graphic on top of the image, but if I put this image here, you can no longer see the graphic. So what you want to do is right click, and there's this section called arrange. And you can bring to front, send to back, and then bring forward and bring backward. So bring to front and bring to back, or send to back, mean that it's going to bring it to the absolute top or the absolute bottom. And you want to use these carefully because unless you know exactly how many layers are here. So here I'm going to bring this to the front so that no matter what I put in front of it, it should show up. And the last thing we're going to sort of talk about is the logos. So you can drag and drop here. I have the USBC logo already here. So sort of dragging and dropping the logo to where you want it. There are two different types of images you want to watch out for. The USBC logo that I have has a white text background no matter what. Versus this mother, partner, baby, when you click on it, you can see that around it is a rectangle, but the rectangle, and it's not, the background is clear. So this sort of dictates a lot about how you can arrange your graphics, because you wouldn't necessarily want to put this here because it's obstructing the graphic. So those are the two main images that you want to watch out for. And then there's the prevalence of a background color or not a background color. And I know these might seem like sort of, these are much more stylistic things, but they sort of help you to make the graphic the way that you want it to look. Because especially when you're considering graphics like this that create, if you really want a picture that has a lot, that requires a lot of space, you want to be able to make your text still stand out. So it's important to be able to make a solid color on the background of the text. So I'm going to just make sure that you understand how to do that, which requires the fill and the line. So it's important that you change the line color as well as the fill color. Because if the line color is white, you're going to end up with a border. And you might want that and you might not. So it's just important to sort of know that those things are happening so you don't get frustrated when you're troubleshooting or trying to change things in your graphic. So I think that is a good place to stop there. Another thing we want to talk about is your image guidelines. The guidelines for images change constantly. So a lot of times when you do want to figure out what guidelines you have for, let's say, you know, I want to know the image size for Facebook. You could Google Facebook image size, but you also want to Google the year. I found this really great link to a Social Sprout page that keeps it up to date with the current metrics for each platform. I am going to say this though, for the standard image that's shared on social media, you can pretty much just keep it the way that the PowerPoint puts it out. So I made sure and tested, but a lot of times what you'll find is that all of these websites will have a bunch of different graphic sizes, but this is mainly for if you are changing your profile picture, your header picture. Those are the things that require really specific dimensions. The images that are just shared don't necessarily require you to have those specific dimensions. The only time that can sometimes pop up is when you are using a third-party scheduling program like Social Sprout or Hootsuite, and it's not necessarily the size of the image, it's the size of the file. So what it'll tell you is that your file is above 5 megabytes. And sometimes reducing the size of the image will do that, and sometimes it won't. So that just has to do with how much information you have, how intricate your graphic is. So sometimes it's just, when you get an error message like that, reducing the size of the image may not actually help. But you can try it. So that's why it's important to know how to do that if you need to do it. So thank yous and sort of the messaging of thank yous. We've talked about this a few different times, and it's really important to have donor-centric messaging that focuses on the donors, and to make sure that you do it and do it consistently. This is referred to in the field as fundraising, and sort of making sure that you are keeping those relationships strong, because at the point at which someone is donating to your campaign, they are a strong advocate and ally for your organization, and you do not want them to feel like you only recognize them when you need something. And you know, when you've done something for someone, a thank you goes a long way in your personal life, and the same thinking sort of applies to nonprofits. So the venues for using sort of your thank you graphic, which might look something like this, would be your email, your social media. Again, you can use it in a printed card, in a post-donation message, which would be like the message that shows up after someone has clicked donate. What's that next step? And really carefully crafting that next step and using it as a thank you is great, as well as sort of a handwritten card. So after you can set a threshold, everybody that donates above a certain amount gets a handwritten card. And this is sort of an extra step of letting that person know how deeply and authentically you appreciate their contribution. So we have 2 links for you. This link is a wonderful infographic that has, it's a concise explanation of exactly why you should be saying thank you and how you should be saying it. And one of my favorite points of this is do not use that thank you message to ask for another donation. So this is one instance where there should definitely not be another donation button. Not asking for something else in a thank you isn't really a thank you. And so then there's also this best practices for thank you calls, which kind of is part and parcel to like maybe a handwritten card. Some people would do a phone call. And in sort of today's society, phone calls can be a little weird. Most people would prefer for you to just text them, or, you know, it's a different understanding of phone communication. So it's nice to sort of have the information like this about, you know, the best way to do it. So if you're planning on making thank you phone calls, we really recommend reading this 5 best practices. So this year, instead of doing a free gift, the USBSC has sort of used that to commission Suzanne Haydu to do another graphic. So this is a beautiful image that we are making available for you. It will be part of your package at the end for you to make thank you cards or postcards, or, you know, use it however you see fit. And we've included 3 possible printing places. We have Vistaprint, PS Print, which is what we use, and Moo. So Vistaprint and Moo are sort of these third-party websites where you kind of go in and design it yourself. I have personal experience, well, between the USBC, we all have either work or personal experience with all of these, so that's why we picked the 3 of these. I think Moo would have the highest price point and is much more to be warned. It's much more, this is for if you want to create something that's a little on the fancier side, say you want like a square business card rather than like a rectangle, or those sort of like foil, gold, fancy thingies, that would sort of be Moo would be an easy place to get that. But if you are not looking for that, Moo actually isn't as friendly, and the interface might not be as intuitive as other interfaces, just to provide us a little bit of warning for that. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful and makes sense. So thank you.
Thanks, Annette. Can you just go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Thanks. So this has been a lot, but believe it or not, we have even more that we could talk about and go into even greater depth, but we don't want to flood you with fundraising ideas. So we're already planning 201 for advanced fundraising, and on the screen are a couple of our ideas and about it. And of course, we always would also love any suggestions or questions for other topics you'd like to hear around fundraising, or really around anything else. So feel free to chat those into the question box, which also leads us to ask if there are any further questions.
Thanks so much, ladies. And I'm just going to go ahead and mute that. Okay, so we do have just a few questions, and the first one is, we have some stories of the impact of our coalitions, but we haven't been able to capture images. So our letters in the template are very bland. How can coalitions make the ask letters more visually appealing?
Yeah, this is a really great question. So all of the photos that you saw in this presentation come from the USBC's photo library that is available to all coalitions. So you just go to usbreastfeeding.org/photo-project, and you're going to find a link to where you can go and access all of those photos. Feel free to download them and use them in your materials. And of course, we also just learned so much good stuff from Lynette about other fun ways to create graphics and use those photos in creative ways to help really put some visual appeal on your outreach emails or social media posts.
Great, thanks so much, Cheryl. We do have another question. Can any of you speak more about tying donations to action alerts versus standalone donations? Can you give us some tips?
Sure. So,
Sure.
Sarah,
Oh,
oh, go ahead, Sarah. You
sorry,
got it.
Sarah. Yeah, this is Sarah. So this is something that we dabble in, I would say, and like Cheryl, feel free to jump in, and Lynette too. And it can be good to tie an action alert into this. But also, I think that in the holiday season, it can also be really great to just focus in on the work that your coalition does and the impact that you have, and focus on donation, so that you're not sort of like spreading that audience attention too thin, which is a problem that we have always run into, of just like trying to cram as much as we can into a single email. But I think that maybe outside of the holiday season, it's a good way to sort of tying your donation appeal into an action alert is a good way to grab interest.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. I have another question just about the photo library. Are the photos only available for coalitions, or can any person access the photo library?
Sorry, this is kind of in my area. They're not only available for coalitions, they're available for the field. When you go to the link, which I think Danae chatted out, you'll be taken to the terms of use, and as long as your use of them falls under approved use and does not fall under restricted use, then you're good to go. And you can always email the office at usbreastfeeding.org if you have any questions about that.
Wonderful. And before we close, do any of you have anything you'd like to add or share with the group before you depart?
I would just say, oh, go ahead, Lynette.
No, you go ahead. You can go first.
I was just going to say, don't feel afraid to reach out if you have questions. You know, we're always available. You can email office@usbreastfeeding.org. You can contact Danae at coalitions@usbreastfeeding.org. I mean, we really want to be available as a resource. So just let us know when things come up.
Yeah, and I would like to second that. I think that, I mean, I hope I sort of got across the large number of things that you can do in PowerPoint to create graphics. I think to the question of how can we make our appeals how can we make our donation appeals more appealing? We live in sort of a graphics age, and there's a lot of just sort of science between bolding things, making things higher, color schemes, white space, that can really help make your graphics stand out. So, you know, and one of the things that I use personally is if I don't know where to start, I go to Pinterest and Google or search to see what are some designs that really stand out to me, and do my best to sort of tweak those to our language and our needs, and make it work for me. So definitely using graphics is a huge thing, and there are a lot of, I could talk endlessly about creating them, but I won't. But just if you would like more information about that, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm at newsletter@usbreastfeeding.org or L.Enigbo, and I think all of that will be given to you.
Yeah, and this is Sarah, and I think oh, sorry, Danae. I think that my final thing would just be, you know, you don't have to do, if you did everything in this webinar, it would be incredibly successful, but also if you only, you know, made a couple graphics and asked your network, that is an amazing start for your holiday campaign, and that is a great place to begin the new year in also.
Well, great. Thank you so much. We know that raising money as a nonprofit can be a challenge, whether it's in good times or bad. So thank you all for your tips and resources that you provided. Just a reminder that the items in the toolkit are uploaded on the Power Tools webpage, as well as in the file library in the Coalition's Learning Connection. So please be sure to download the items that you feel would be most helpful to you and your coalition. And with that, that brings us to the end of today's session. So thank you all for tuning in, and for all you do to improve the lives of women, children, and families. Goodbye for now, and we look forward to having you all for our next webinar session. Take care.